The billionaire's double life. The pianist's perfect trap drama. Alert. Before we plunge into this epic tale of betrayal, billionaire luxury, and perfectly orchestrated revenge, we have a deal for you. If this story grabs you from the very first word, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss our next deep dive into the secrets of the elite. We've taken this gripping story of intrigue and moved it to the heart of the Hamptons, New York jet set, ensuring every word is as impactful as the original, and the length is maintained, line by line, detail by detail. The quiet hum and the exposed name. Imagine the vast sterling estate in the Hamptons, bathed in the last golden light of the late afternoon. An elegant black limousine waits by the fountain, its engine a soft, nervous purr. Inside the opulent foyer stands Aurora Sterling, the wife who has just stumbled upon her husband's double life. Upstairs, in a lavish master suite, her husband's phone vibrates with urgent messages from the mysterious Valeria Diaz. Thousands of miles away, in a chic Parisian hotel suite, flight reservations are confirmed, champagne is chilled, and a secret romance is blossoming in the City of Lights. What none of them realize yet is that the next 48 hours will explode in a betrayal so shocking it will shatter their meticulously constructed worlds forever. Chapter 1. The Gilded Cage and the First Clue. Jonathan Sterling was a man of undeniable, extraordinary success. Tall, self-assured, and impeccably tailored, he had forged his fortune through a series of astute investments, catapulting him from a middle-class upbringing in Boston to the exclusive circles of the ultra-wealthy. If you had glimpsed Jonathan and his wife, Aurora, at a gala for the Sterling Family Foundation, or seen them in a glossy business magazine, you might have believed they lived the ultimate fairy tale. Their estate, in fact, sat on 100 acres of rolling green hills outside of East Hampton, New York. A sweeping white stone drive meandered through curated gardens, culminating at the ornate fountain by the entrance. Every corner spoke of a life meticulously curated. The perfect art on the walls, the ideal staff waiting, the impeccable parties held for philanthropic causes. Yet, behind that polished veneer, the Sterling marriage was not what it seemed. While Aurora, a former renowned concert pianist, was graceful and composed in social settings, the demands of this lifestyle had left her feeling invisible. She had spent the first 10 years of her marriage organizing charity dinners and keeping polite conversation at exclusive clubs. Jonathan's frequent business trips, while paying for the luxurious existence she enjoyed, exacted an emotional toll. She often found herself alone in the imposing mansion for weeks, her music resonating through empty halls. When Jonathan was home, his attention was fleeting. A quick kiss on the cheek, a courteously distant conversation about the next corporate deal. One windy autumn afternoon, their chauffeur, Marcus, pulled the limousine up to the entrance after collecting Jonathan from the airport. Aurora was there, as always, to meet him. She studied Jonathan's expression, the tension in his jaw. He seemed more distant than usual. As he moved into the foyer, they exchanged customary courtesies. Jonathan handed his jacket to the butler, Charles, and headed straight for his study. Aurora followed him in, cautiously. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. He was seated at his imposing mahogany desk. His smartphone was face down, intentionally shielding any notifications. He looked up, forcing a hollow smile. "Just tired. It was a long flight from Dubai. I'll be fine." Ellie nodded and turned to leave, but not before noticing the subtle change in his posture when his phone vibrated. His entire body tensed, and he quickly placed his hand over the device, guarding it from her view. The phone vibrated again. This time, the screen illuminated with the name Valeria Diaz. He practically flinched when he realized she could see it. Aurora managed a smile, but her heart was thrumming with suspicion. The name was unfamiliar. There was something about his reaction that alerted her. He had never been so protective over a phone call. Before she could address the matter, he cleared his throat, grabbed the phone, and said, "I need to take this privately. Would you mind, darling?" The words sounded as foreign as the name Valeria on his screen. She left, allowing the door to close behind her. The weight of her suspicions felt heavier than ever. Her marriage, once bright with promises, was overshadowed by the uncomfortable sensation that everything was about to collapse. Chapter 2. The Rabbit Hole and the Unwavering Confidant. In the following days, Aurora clung to her piano practice. Debussy's Clair de Lune, Chopin's Nocturnes. But the music now sounded discordant, shadowed by her husband's emotional distance. Even her weekly lunch with her lifelong confidant, the philanthropist Vivian Hayes, offered little solace. Aurora confided in Vivian about the phone call, the name Valeria, and Jonathan's sudden shift in behavior. Vivian, known for her direct honesty, set down her Earl Grey tea. "Then find out," she said with emphasis. "This Valeria could be a business associate or a signal of something more. Either way, you need to know. Don't sit around waiting for your world to come crashing down." That night, while Jonathan was presumably working late, Aurora turned to the internet. She typed Valeria Diaz into the search bar. A rapid whirlwind of results appeared. An Argentine model, an Instagram account under the same name. Photos of a stunning brunette gracing runways in Milan and Paris. Mentions of philanthropic appearances supporting women's education, and a suspiciously frequent mention of private appearances in New York. Aurora scrolled through the images, reading the captions that described Valeria's ascent from modest origins in Buenos Aires to high-fashion runways in Europe. The woman was dazzling, exuding composure and glamour. A chilling thought struck Aurora. If Valeria was truly in contact with Jonathan, this had to be more than business. She slammed her laptop shut, her heart racing. When she finally lay down that night, she found Jonathan deeply asleep, or at least faking it. The faint glow of his phone illuminated the darkness. She held her breath. Her instincts told her that life as she knew it was balanced on a precipice. Reader question: if you were in Aurora's position, would you confront Jonathan immediately? Or would you seek more proof to secure your legal position? Leave your opinion in the comments. Chapter 3. The Quiet Preparation and the Legal Shield. In the following weeks, Aurora spotted more signs. Jonathan's business trips seemed more frequent, even suspiciously scheduled, around major events in Paris or Milan. He suddenly developed an interest in French lessons. Every time his phone vibrated, a certain tension or a flash of guilt shadowed his expression. But Aurora was not foolish. She decided that if the worst was happening, she would handle it with every ounce of grace and cunning that high society life had taught her. She contacted an attorney, Julian Carter, an old friend, now a partner at a prestigious New York law firm. She merely laid out her concerns, asked for confidentiality, and consulted on the legal path forward. "Divorce is complicated," Julian warned. "Especially high-net-worth divorces. You will need solid proof, Aurora. Financial records, phone records, anything that proves the infidelity if you want a strong case." The word infidelity felt like a dagger, but she pressed her lips tight. "I just need to protect myself, just in case." Julian gave her a supportive hand on hers. "I understand. I am here if you need me. No judgment, no leaks. We can do this with total discretion." Aurora decided to play a silent game of surveillance. She knew that a direct, ill-timed confrontation could give him the opportunity to cover his tracks. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Valeria Diaz was lighting up runways. Aurora, in her darkest moments of insomnia, scrolled through Valeria's feed, noticing the subtle clues. a high-end watch gleaming on Valeria's wrist that Aurora recognized as one Jonathan had once admired. The corners of a lavish suite that suspiciously resembled the Sterling's favorite spot at the Plaza Athénée. The pieces of the puzzle were forming a devastating picture. Jonathan, for his part, believed he was navigating his double life skillfully. If guilt occasionally gnawed at him, he suffocated it with rationalizations. He told himself Aurora had grown distant. They stayed together more for appearances than for passion. Yet, deep down, he knew every deception had an expiration date. His elaborate facade was dangerously close to crumbling. Chapter 4. The Whispers and the Gathering Storm. 2 months later, the first real whisper of Jonathan's infidelity escaped the confines of their private world. At a high society charity gala in New York, benefiting the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Aurora noticed unusual glances and half-concealed smiles from people she had known for years. Did these socialites know something she didn't? Inside, they mingled with the usual crowd. One of Jonathan's recent acquaintances, an elegant French entrepreneur named Isabelle Fournier, approached Aurora with a strange glint in her eyes. "Bonjour, Aurora," Isabelle said. "Such a delight to see you. I heard Jonathan just got back from a business trip to Paris last week. I hope you two enjoyed the City of Love together." Aurora forced a soft laugh. "I stayed home, I'm afraid. The City of Love was just for business, I suspect." Isabelle's eyebrows rose a fraction. "Oh, I assumed you would be there too. Well, there's always a next time." Isabelle disappeared, leaving Aurora with a sudden chill. The tone was too coy, too knowing. Later that night, Aurora noticed Jonathan engrossed in a discussion with a group of men. She edged closer, pretending interest in a nearby sculpture. That's when she heard something that made her heart pound. "The young lady from Buenos Aires," one voice said. "She's spectacular." "Yes, she is something special," Jonathan's voice replied. "A wonderful collaborator for the new campaign." Aurora held her breath. Buenos Aires was Valeria's hometown. Another man laughed lightly. "Some campaign, Sterling. Let's hope the wife doesn't find out." Jonathan's tone shifted, cautious but still confident. "It's strictly a business matter, gentlemen." If any lingering doubt remained, it had now dissipated. The humiliating fact that others seemed to know about Valeria only sharpened Aurora's sense of betrayal. One thing was a private breakdown. Quite another was becoming gossip fodder. The next day, Aurora retreated to Vivian Hayes's Manhattan townhouse. "You have to do something," Vivian insisted. "You cannot allow him to humiliate you like this in front of your entire social circle." Aurora's eyes welled with tears, but she blinked them away. "I've already consulted Julian Carter. I don't want to pull the divorce trigger yet, but I can't allow this to continue." Vivienne gave her a fierce hug. "Gather more proof. In our world, rumors fly, but if you want to confront him, you need tangible evidence, and do it in a way that gives him no room to concoct a corporate story." Aurora began her careful compilation of clues. She scanned credit card statements, studied flight itineraries, and discreetly followed Valeria's Instagram. She created a folder on her laptop, innocuously labeled Vacation Plans, where she compiled screenshots, receipts, and every scrap of evidence. Her emotional torment was immense, but she reminded herself that patience would pay off. Chapter 5. The trap is set. Despite her inner turmoil, Aurora maintained her polished behavior publicly. She reminded herself that patience would pay off. One night, sitting across from Jonathan at the grand dining table, she probed. "How was Paris, darling? No time for sightseeing? I heard about Fashion Week." "No, darling. It was all business. The French are quite formal in meetings. Little time for anything else." Sipping her wine, Aurora let the conversation fall silent. She knew a quiet dinner confrontation would never suffice. She needed him to fall directly into her trap, unprepared and fully exposed. That trap took shape one cool afternoon. Aurora found a hotel reservation for 2 at the Plaza Athénée. The date was 3 weeks away. No official business trip was scheduled. She took a photograph of the document. The name was J. Sterling, guest. That was enough. She had everything. Flight itineraries, suspicious bank statements, the hotel reservation, the final piece. It was the perfect time to strike, and she had just devised the idea. If Jonathan planned to take Valeria to Paris, Aurora would make sure she was there when they returned. She imagined the confrontation, Jonathan descending from the private jet, Valeria on his arm, only to find Aurora waiting at the door, with Julian Carter at her side. What Aurora didn't yet realize was that destiny was about to offer an even more dramatic scenario. Richard was growing bolder. He had already devised an elaborate weekend escape for Valeria that same month. His carefully orchestrated affair was about to spectacularly explode. Chapter 6. The Collision at Teterboro. The moment Jonathan boarded the Gulfstream jet on a cold November afternoon, he felt an electric thrill. Valeria Diaz was already settled in a luxurious leather seat. "Bonjour, mon amour," she purred. "Ready for Paris?" he asked, a smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "I always keep my promises." The plane departed from the private terminal at Teterboro Executive Airport in New Jersey. As the plane soared toward Europe, he comforted himself with the notion that everything was under control. Little did he know, Aurora was also aware of his itinerary. She had discovered the exact flight details after paying a considerable fee to a private investigator. She wanted them to savor their illicit weekend, only to crash the moment they returned to American soil. While they enjoyed their 2 days in Paris, dinner at Le Jules Verne, an exclusive fashion boutique visit, Aurora spent every hour preparing. With Julian Carter's help, she drafted the necessary documents for an immediate separation and protective measures over her assets. The day of their return was bright and cold. Aurora, Vivian, and Julian arrived at the private terminal lounge. The air was thick with anticipation. On the plane, Jonathan and Valeria were in high spirits. He was already planning their next getaway. As the wheels touched down, he pulled out his phone to text his chauffeur. Through the window, Jonathan noticed a small group of people standing near one of the glass doors. Squinting, he thought he recognized a figure. Aurora! His heart lurched. Immediately, 1,000 alarms blared in his mind. And that was Julian Carter, his family lawyer, with Vivian Hayes by her side. A freezing panic began to filter into his veins. His carefully constructed world was about to catastrophically collide with reality. The stage was set for the confrontation that would define the rest of their lives. Investor's dilemma. If you were an investor, would hearing about Jonathan's blatant affair make you question his judgment in business? Comment your opinion, and let's discuss. Chapter 7. The Unflinching Standoff. The moment Jonathan stepped off the plane, a cold, sharp wind hit the tarmac. Valeria followed closely. They had expected a warm, discreet reception. Instead, they were met with a tableau of tension. Aurora stood at the threshold of the terminal, her posture rigid, her chin lifted with icy elegance. Next to her, Julian Carter held a sleek black folder. Vivian Hayes watched from behind, eyes narrowed in pure disapproval. "Aurora, what are you doing here?" Jonathan forced a casual smile. "I might ask you the same, Jonathan. Your business trip ended a week ago?" He swallowed hard, stepping forward. "This is not the place to discuss personal matters." Ellie advanced. "I agree. Let's go inside. I believe Mr. Carter has some documents that require your immediate attention." Once inside, Aurora turned, facing Jonathan directly. She spoke in a measured tone, every word crisp. "I know everything. About your affair with Miss Diaz, about the trips, the gifts, the little secrets. I have the receipts, the flight logs, and the credit card bills. every unbearable detail. Julian Carter stepped forward, opening the folder. Jonathan Sterling, as counsel for Aurora Sterling, I present you with the following: a formal separation agreement, a protective order preventing you from moving or liquidating joint assets, and an initial filing for divorce. Jonathan snatched the papers, his eyes barely focusing. This is madness. We need to talk, Aurora. Aurora's gaze never wavered. I think we've had enough talk for one marriage, don't you think? And clearly you've done plenty of talking with your companion. Valeria bristled. Mrs. Sterling, if I had known. Aurora raised a hand to silence her, her voice dripping with controlled fury. Don't! You knew he was married. And if you didn't, you must be willfully blind. She turned back to Jonathan, her eyes bright with the tears she refused to shed. How could you humiliate me like this? I was a coward, he finally whispered. I don't want to lose everything we built. Aurora let out a soft, despairing laugh. You already have, Jonathan. You just don't see it yet. Julian Carter confirmed the reality. Mr. Sterling, your wife is well within her rights to protect herself. I suggest you consult your attorney and comply with the financial restrictions. Any attempt to conceal assets will be met with legal consequences. Jonathan, defeated, asked for a minute alone. Aurora agreed, but Valeria had to remain where she was. I know I hurt you. It was never my intention, he pleaded. Don't tell me that line. You kept this going for months. At what point did you intend to stop? She pulled away from him. Finally, Aurora turned to leave. She looked at Julian. Are we finished here, Mr. Carter? We are, Mrs. Sterling. As Aurora and Vivian were leaving, she stopped. She turned back, fixing her gaze on Jonathan one last time. Her voice was surprisingly soft, yet edged with profound heartbreak. I never thought you would do this to me, but I suppose I was naive. Good luck, Jonathan. With that, she exited. Her posture regale, her chin high. The glass door closed, leaving a resonating silence. Richard stood there, looking at the place where his wife had stood. Valeria stepped forward. Jonathan, what do we do? I need to call my lawyer, he said, running a hand through his hair. He realized the storm he had courted with lies and secrecy had finally broken, and he had nowhere left to run. Final conclusion and reflection. The reckoning. The story of the Sterlings is a testament to the fact that dignity is the ultimate armor. Jonathan, the powerful man who thought he could have it all, paid a heavy price for his contempt and deceit. His name, once synonymous with power, became a byword for scandal. Aurora found the courage to face the betrayal head-on, not with screaming, but with surgical precision. She armed herself with evidence and the power of her own self-worth. Her answer was cold, calculated, and full of the quiet strength that comes from building, not tearing down. It gave her back something far more valuable than the house, her identity and her peace. Remember to like this video and share it if this story kept you on the edge of your seat. Your support is crucial. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating tales that illuminate human nature, relationships, and the decisions that can change our destinies forever. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Aurora's meticulous plan was an act of cold vengeance or an act of necessary self-preservation? Thank you for joining us. The Billionaire's Double Life, Part 8. Rebirth and Legacy. Welcome back for the final decisive chapter. The dust has settled, but the real battles, the legal and emotional ones, are just beginning. If you've been gripped by Aurora's unwavering strength, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We're about to explore what happens when a woman chooses creation over destruction. Chapter 8. The Price of Negligence. In the weeks following the airport confrontation, Jonathan Sterling found himself increasingly isolated. The Hamptons estate was no longer his sanctuary. It now belonged solely to Aurora. His office at Sterling Capital felt strangely empty. Many of his trusted allies began to distance themselves, pausing deals or simply not returning his calls. He had fatally underestimated the weight of public perception and the power of his wife's elite circle. Behind the scenes, Jonathan's legal team was under immense pressure. Julian Carter's firm cited financial records linked to inactive shell corporations that Jonathan thought had been forgotten. Offshore accounts were flagged. An audit loomed. Even the board of one of his flagship real estate trusts demanded answers, concerned about reputational risk. The whispered rumors quickly crystallized into a public judgment. Another powerful man who thought he could have it all and lost more than he ever imagined. Meanwhile, Aurora began her deliberate, quiet ascendancy. She maintained a low public profile, but made calculated moves in private. She directed interior restorations at the estate, removing every trace of Jonathan's influence. The study, which he once ruled with an iron precision, was converted into a music library and recording space. The heavy, imposing art was replaced by bold works from female artists she admired. Her legal battle continued with quiet intensity. Julian and his team worked tirelessly, armed with every bank statement, flight log, and social media post Aurora had meticulously collected. Each piece of evidence served not only as proof of Jonathan's affair, but also of his financial deception. Every document brought her closer to freedom. Financial insight. Jonathan's allies are dropping him. In the world of high finance, is a lack of discretion a greater business liability than a lack of capital? Let us know your perspective in the comments. Chapter 9. The Unexpected Apology and the Final Negotiation. Despite her composed exterior, Aurora was not without pain. Some nights, she still woke up to phantom memories, his laughter echoing in the hall. Yet, when morning came, she rose stronger. She reminded herself that memory was not permission to remain in agony. One afternoon, an unexpected handwritten letter arrived. The paper was thick, cream-colored. It was from Valeria Diaz. Aurora hesitated before opening it. Dear Aurora, I know I am the last person you want to hear from. I deserve that. I never should have believed the things Jonathan told me about your marriage. He painted you as cold, indifferent, someone who had already moved on. I realize now how wrong I was. I never wanted to be the villain in your story. I have left New York. I want no part of this. I just wanted to say, I am sorry. Aurora read the note twice. Then, she carefully folded it and placed it in the back of her desk drawer. She neither forgave nor replied. Some things required no answer. The legal proceedings entered their final phase. Jonathan, increasingly anxious, agreed to mediation. The alternative, a public, prolonged trial, would destroy what little remained of his public image. At the mediation, Aurora sat opposite him for the first time since the airport. He looked older, gaunter, his eyes hollowed by too many sleepless nights. I assume you've come to accept my terms, she said calmly, breaking the silence. I've come to end this, he replied, his voice tense. Before I lose everything. Aurora tilted her head. We lose everything, or before you lose everything, he sighed. Before I lose everything. For hours, they negotiated through lawyers. Aurora never wavered. She demanded the Hamptons estate, the Sterling Family Foundation, and full control of their joint philanthropic ventures. She asked for no alimony, only a clean division, and a lump sum that Jonathan initially balked at, but eventually conceded. As they finalized the terms, he turned to her one last time. You truly hate me, don't you? She looked him directly in the eye. No, Jonathan, I don't hate you. That would mean I still cared enough to feel that deeply. His face twitched with something, regret, perhaps recognition. But she allowed it no time to linger. She rose, nodded to her lawyer, and walked out. Chapter 10. The Unveiling. The final agreement was signed 2 weeks later. With that, their marriage, in paper and in spirit, was over. Aurora's public statement was brief and elegant. Mr. Sterling and I have decided to go our separate ways. I remain committed to my music and my philanthropic work, and I appreciate the support of those who have respected my privacy during this time. Jonathan issued a longer statement filled with vague apologies and emphasis on future business ventures. He carefully avoided the word affair. In private, he spiraled. The stain persisted. His name, once synonymous with power, was now just another headline in a cautionary tale. Aurora, on the other hand, began her true renaissance. She released her first solo piano album in over a decade. It was a silent triumph, raw, emotional, masterful. Critics hailed it as a bold return from a woman who understood loss and rebirth. Her foundation expanded its outreach to support women re-entering the workforce after divorce or domestic challenges. She became a silent icon of resilience, although she never sought the spotlight. Her interest lay in building, not tearing down. On the 1-year anniversary of the airport confrontation, Aurora stood on the balcony of her estate, overlooking the gardens. Spring had returned. The air was filled with birdsong, and the tulips bloomed in the breeze. She held a cup of tea and allowed herself one final look back, not with bitterness, but with recognition. She had survived the storm, conquered it, and somewhere, she hoped Jonathan understood. She smiled, not the smile of vengeance, but one of profound peace. Her story, once defined by another person's betrayal, was now entirely her own. Meaningful conclusion and final reflection. You have witnessed a story of splendor and heartbreak, where a seemingly perfect billionaire lifestyle masked secrets too big to contain. In the end, Aurora Sterling found the courage to face the betrayal head-on, armed with evidence, resolution, and the power of her own self-worth. Jonathan paid a high price for his deceit, realizing too late that true wealth resides not in ostentatious escapades or hidden bank accounts, but in trust and respect. His betrayal, motivated by a personal void and a false sense of invincibility, cost him his fortune, his legacy, and his peace. Aurora's response, cold, calculated, and filled with dignity, gave her back something far more valuable: her identity and a profound new purpose. Her true legacy is not the money she acquired, but the life she built for herself and for others. Remember to like this video and share it. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, your support is fundamental. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating tales that illuminate human nature, relationships, and the decisions that can change our destinies forever. Let us know in the comments. Do you think Aurora achieved true forgiveness, or did she simply find a powerful new way to channel her anger? Thank you for joining us. The Billionaire's Double Life, Epilogue, The Resolution. Welcome back to the Sterling saga. Even though the divorce papers are signed, the consequences for Jonathan are far from over. If you've been waiting to see if the disgraced billionaire finds redemption or ruin, please hit that like button and subscribe. Let's explore the quiet fate of the man who lost it all. Chapter 11. The Small Apartment. A year and a half after the divorce was finalized, Jonathan Sterling was a ghost of his former self. He now lived in a chic but significantly smaller, high-rise apartment in downtown Miami, far from the influential circles of New York and the sprawling greens of the Hamptons. He had managed to salvage a decent portion of his liquid assets, enough to live comfortably. But his power was gone. His calls for new investment deals were met with polite refusals. His name was still a brand, but now it carried the faint, lingering scent of scandal and poor judgment. He was one of many wealthy men, not the Jonathan Sterling. He often found himself scrolling through old photos of the Hamptons estate, not pictures of Aurora, but of the marble hallways, the towering study, the things he had amassed. He realized the marriage hadn't just been a relationship. It had been a corporate partnership that validated his existence. Without it, he was just a wealthy man with too much time. Valeria Diaz, the mistress, was a distant memory. She had accepted her final payment and moved to Milan, where she quietly continued her modeling career, having skillfully avoided the media circus. Jonathan knew he couldn't blame her. She had merely pursued an opportunity, while he had been the architect of his own downfall. His lawyer, Julian Carter, kept him updated on Aurora's activities. The Sterling Family Foundation, now renamed the Vance Foundation, was booming. Aurora had poured her energy into supporting women's entrepreneurship and music education, turning the organization into a symbol of resilience. Her second piano album was a critical success. She had found her purpose, and it had nothing to do with him. Chapter 12. Final gesture. One crisp Friday morning, Jonathan received a small, thin package in the mail. It was a formal engraved invitation to the Vance Foundation's annual gala. Aurora had personally signed the invitation, though the gesture was clearly a formality of the foundation's board. He almost threw it away. The thought of facing the crowd, the knowing glances of the people who once admired him, was unbearable. Yet, a few days later, he found himself sitting at his desk, staring at the invitation. He wouldn't go, but he felt an unexpected small surge of something other than resentment, a flicker of respect. He walked to his private safe and retrieved one small item that had survived the asset division, a rare first-edition manuscript of a Chopin nocturne that Aurora had admired since childhood. He had intended to keep it as a private, petty victory. Instead, he carefully packed the manuscript. He then wrote a short, anonymous note and addressed the package to the Vance Foundation of Aurora Sterling. The note read only, "A gift for the music library, with sincere wishes for the Foundation's continued growth." He signed it, simply, J.S. It was a small, final act of acknowledgement. Not an attempt at reconciliation, but an admission of the good she was now creating from the ashes of their life. He realized that in losing her, he had finally given her the space and the means to become the person she was always meant to be. Meaningful conclusion. Jonathan's story concludes not with a roar, but with a quiet acceptance. He never regained his former status, but in his isolation, he gained a crucial form of clarity. He understood that his hunger for risk and secrecy cost him more than money. It cost him his legacy, which was now being redefined by the woman he had so carelessly discarded. Aurora Sterling continued to thrive. Her resilience proved to be her greatest asset, turning betrayal into a powerful platform. Her final, quiet triumph was not the asset division, but the fact that Jonathan himself, by his final, anonymous gesture, acknowledged her authority and her moral victory. The saga of the Sterlings ends with the realization that in life, just as in music, sometimes the most profound resolution is found in the final, quiet chord of peaceful separation. What do you think of Jonathan's anonymous gesture? Was it true redemption, or simply a way to ease his own guilt? Leave your final thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for the next story of power and consequence.